I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Tom Obradovich, President and CEO of Conquest Resources. Thank you so much for joining me online today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and we're going to start off by talking a little bit about you. You have a pretty interesting background in the resource space, and for those who might not be aware, I wondered if you could begin by giving me a little bit of an overview on your background and some of the discoveries that you've been involved in over the years.
Well, I graduated from Haileybury School of Mines, which is a mining-specific school in Northern Ontario near the mining town of Cobalt. I was born and raised in Kirkland Lake on a gold mine, so I've been exposed to the industry directly since I was a very young person. I started as a contract prospector after a brief stint with Iron Ore Company of Canada as a mining engineering technologist. Got into prospecting as a hobby, and then it morphed into a full-time career, originally starting as a contract prospector. Eventually, I was watching people create mining companies and develop projects and make a lot more money than I was. So I thought I could give that a turn. And eventually we started through various partners and relationships through the industry, building mining assets and either selling them to junior mining companies or creating companies on our own. To that end, I guess one of the first companies I was involved with as an originator was Canadian Royalties. We eventually developed and sold the Raglan South belt in northern Quebec to under a company called Canadian Royalties to Jinchuan Mining. That mine is up and running right now in the Raglan area. I then moved on to a company called Young-Davidson Mines, and I did a reverse takeover on Young-Davidson through an acquisition of a bankrupt Royal Oak Resources. Young-Davidson, we were able to, with a team I put together, we were able to develop a 2 million ounce resource, and that mine is being mined by Alamos right now and is producing some 200,000 ounces a year and providing employment in and around my hometown to over 400 people. So very proud of that one. In the same time period, I got involved with Patrick Anderson and a few other gentlemen. We acquired a company called Aurelian Resources through a shell called Bio One that Pat DeCapo had. And Pat's kind of prolific in the industry now for doing startups. We eventually morphed that into Aurelian Resources, and our team discovered the Fruta Del Norte deposit. And that's currently being mined by Lundin Gold Mining. They've done a great job putting that into production. We sold it to Kinross. They in turn sold it to Lundin, and Lundin was able to weather the political situation in Ecuador and finance that into a very nice producing mine. It's doing better than anybody ever thought it would. It's producing substantial amounts of gold. I also got involved with Patrick Anderson in a company called Radian, which developed a 7 million ounce deposit in Northern Ireland. That's currently the largest undeveloped gold project in Europe. They're working hard to try and get it permitted and get it ready for production. Conquest Resources is something that kind of came by me as an accident. Because of Radian, I negotiated a royalty with a gentleman by the name of John Kearney, who had a royalty on the Kurnault deposit in Tyrone County in Northern Ireland. So through the invitation to negotiate a royalty buyback, I met Mr. Kearney, who controlled Conquest Resources. During that time, I had always had a fascination about the Temagami mining camp and done numerous acquisitions to put together a major ground position in that area. The last missing piece was held in a public company called Conquest. So I took my private company and merged it last November with John's public company and took over the control of Conquest and the running of the exploration. So we created a large land package, which we've been developing for the last year, to some success so far, but hopefully some greater success as we move forward.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about some of what's going on there right now. So you mentioned that you're making progress there over the last year. I think the latest news was at the end of the September, you're going to be drilling several IOCG targets there. Can you talk a little bit about that and if there's any updates right now?
Yeah, we identified. It's a very difficult project, for my poor, long-suffering investors have been able to weather the storm for the most part. Some guys are selling, and that's fine too. It's a market, but it's a sort of a labor of love. You have to be patient, and we're testing 34 anomalies scattered over 250 square kilometers. And eventually we zero in on areas of interest. And to that end, we have 3 right now after doing, drilling about 17 targets all over Hell's Half Acre. We've identified an area where we've got substantial copper mineralization. It's not ore grade, but it's interesting enough in a VMS horizon that it deserves following up drilling. And instead of dragging the drill all over the place, now we'll be able to concentrate on one area and bang about 10 holes into an area of interest and hopefully come up with economic mineralization. We have another target that we generated, which is a nickel, copper, platinum, palladium target, just about 5 kilometers southeast of the historic Temagami Copperfields mine, which was Teck Resources' first mine in Canada. We're looking to hopefully find more deposits of similar nature and hopefully larger deposits. Temagami Copperfields was very rich, but not really big. However, the first hole ran 27% copper and over an ounce PGEs. So those kind of grades, you can get away with a small deposit, but we're hoping to find something in that tenure along strike of it. Be aware that we are drilling blind through about 200 to 300 meters of cover rock. Makes our job much more difficult. But Fruta Del Norte was down about 200 or 300 meters below surface. Much of the stuff that we were able to find in the Raglan area was buried deep. So we've had a lot of experience. Young-Davidson, the biggest deposit we found was a boundary deposit, which was kind of a rediscovery, but it was quite deep. So we've had experience drilling at depth, and we believe that most of the great deposits in Canada now have been found near surface, and we're going to have to exercise our expertise in geophysics and be able to detect deposits at greater depths and hopefully economic grades as we move forward with Canadian exploration.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that, because it is one thing that we keep hearing is the easy deposits have probably been found. So you do have to start looking deeper, looking in different areas. Do you think that's something that investors understand, or they're still, learning to reconcile with what's going on?
I think overall the investors understand it, but they also have to understand that they're going to have to be more patient. The deeper you drill, the longer the holes take, and the more efforts required in actually keeping that hole in line. It's one thing to drill a deep hole; it's another thing to control that hole at depth, and that means sometimes slower drilling. Drill stabilizers and lots of surveying in the holes, so you know exactly where you are. But we're quite good at it. Our geologist Jörg Kleinbeck is a little bit anal retentive about it. He's very job specific, and he does very meticulous work. So it does take longer, but hopefully the rewards are bigger. One of our next targets is an IOCG target. That's coming up after our current hole. And that one's quite exciting because of the nature of those deposits. They can be quite huge. And we like to say that we're elephant hunting when we go deep and into the dark unknown, into very large geophysical expressions. This is a combination of a gravity magnetic anomaly with some soil geochem over top of it, but it's quite large. It's about 600 meters in diameter. There are two targets next door that are larger, but we'll test this one because we can get at it right now, and it'll be exciting to see what comes out of it.
Okay, so high risk and hopefully high reward, which is usual when you're in those earlier stages. You're mentioning your long-suffering investors. I know you do have some kind of big names that are invested in the company. I wondered if you could talk about some of those people and what you think they see in the company and the projects.
Oh, we have Rob McEwen. By long suffering, it's the long suffering souls that have been in my private company since 2008. And I gave them a excuse me, a liquidity opportunity by taking this public. But we drilled some crazy stuff over the last oh God, I guess it's about 13 years now. We tested the Temagami magnetic anomaly to begin with, which is a large magnetic feature adjacent to the Sudbury impact crater, and we thought they were related somehow. So we put a 2.2 kilometer hole, actually two of them, in down into the depths of the Temagami magnetic anomaly. And after a number of years and some PhD studies, we discovered a Sudbury offset dike in the heart of the Temagami magnetic anomaly, which does relate it, and it was the same age as some of the dikes in and around the Sudbury impact crater. So we had a little bit of a eureka moment. And we thought that because of that relationship and the deposits around the Sudbury impact crater and the relationship between that expression and the Temagami magnetic feature, there could be also an argument that there may be deposits in and around the perimeter of the Temagami magnetic anomaly. So that's what we're testing now. We think there's potential for VMS deposits, IOCG deposits, magmatic copper nickel deposits. We know they exist, but it's been very hard to do geophysics in the last number of years until they develop deeper sensing equipment that can give us a target that we can drill.
Yeah, and I want to situate what you're doing within the market as a whole. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what's going on with copper right now. We saw the price go way up earlier in the year, and actually it's kind of doing the same thing right now. What do you see when you look at copper? Where do you think we're at in this cycle for the metal?
Well, with the electrification of the world, copper is going to be a key component, and nickel. And that's why we're really focused on this area, because there is an abundance of unexplained copper showings, nickel showings, and the VMS deposits are primarily historically copper, zinc, gold, all of which are target minerals for us. But primarily we're focused on copper, and the IOCG or iron oxide copper gold deposits. VMS with the copper zinc, you get the nickel copper deposits, the magnetic nickel deposit. So, there's a copper element to everything we're looking for. We think that, going forward, the primary producer, Chile, as those grades have been dropping considerably every year, and they've had to move more rock, and there's, water issues. There are labor disputes in Chile. There's all kinds of reasons why they may be challenged to keep the production up in the future. Now, the Congo has great copper deposits. Robert Friedland is developing a monster there with the Chinese, but some of that because of the Chinese control of those projects, you think that one would think that most of the production from there is going to go to China and not reach other markets. So you're going to have other supplies of copper to satisfy the rest of the world market. And I think consumption is going to outweigh production in the short period of time. I think maybe you're seeing that now, in the copper prices.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so we've got copper, we've got nickel as well. I know you recently also picked up a project focused on uranium. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about this energy transition that we seem to be seeing right now and the opportunity that you see in these energy related metals.
Well, I unfortunately missed a lot of the uranium spark in the last number of years. I once had a company in South America that was focused on uranium in Guyana, and that was called U308 Corp, but that's being run by other individuals now. I kind of walked away after the tsunami, kind of crushed the uranium industry for a number of years. But, practically speaking, nuclear power is probably the answer to all of our problems with carbon generation, whether you like it or not. I think nuclear energy is the cleanest, safest energy that we can have. And there's an abundance of potential there, but we have to lose a stigma around uranium, and there have been some catastrophic accidents, but those are poorly built equipment and antiquated equipment that failed in both the Ukraine and 3 Mile Island. But there are, I think nuclear energy is the way to go, and I think uranium has a great future going forward. Kevin Stevens, our chief geophysicist, has been working on an area, and we acquired those claims from Kevin recently that has very many similars to the Athabasca Basin, that's the highly productive uranium area in Saskatchewan. And it's an unconformity in the Nipigon Basin. So we're going to give that a shot. It's another deep drilling program, but the trophies are big and beautiful if we hit them, and our investors will be rewarded soundly. But I really think that we're going to have to change our views on uranium and oil, for that matter. I don't think oil's going away anytime soon. So there's more BTUs in a barrel of oil than there are in a field of solar collectors that provide construction and use metal, and probably the manufacture of the solar panels create more carbon than the actual burning of a barrel of oil. So I think we have to be smarter about our energy going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And as we're just wrapping up here, we've heard about what the company's doing. We've heard a little bit about the metals. I wonder if there are any other trends in the resource space that you've been seeing. We're kind of in a pretty interesting time right now coming out of COVID. We have a lot of the metals that seem to be on an upward trajectory. What things do you think investors should be aware of right now as they're looking at the space?
Well, certainly with the takeover by the Chinese of neolithium recently, some of the I call them specific metals industries where you need an end user to actually develop it. I've been involved in from time to time through my years in the business with cobalt and lithium and tantalum and all kinds of wonderful things, but they seem to be flash in the pans. They're popular for a little bit, and I think I've been through 4 cobalt cycles where everybody got excited about cobalt, and then it kind of died off and went to sleep. But this time around, the lithium seems to have a little bit more staying power. Other metals that, vanadium is something that I think is maybe a flavor of the day, but maybe a flavor of the future. There's battery technology that I've been made aware of that is quite spectacular and just in its infancy. I think going forward, these individuals that I spoke of claim that they can charge a battery in minutes as opposed to hours using a vanadium technology, but I'm not familiar with the details of it. But certainly lithium, vanadium, graphene, all of those specific, peculiar little items in the periodic table, as well as rare earth elements. I think there is a future for those, but they are difficult to find, difficult to develop, and they're rare. So that's why they're so expensive. So I think going forward, those are things that the younger generation should keep an eye on investment.
Okay, well, that sounds like a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts with us today. I'm Charlotte
Bye-bye.
McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Tom Obradovich.